Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here is your host, Father Jay Friedel.
Good morning and welcome to Faith in Our Hometown, our weekly conversation here in the greater Joplin area about issues of faith and politics and what's going on in the community and all those things that impact us as people of faith and as people of the greater Joplin area. My guest this morning is going to be Meg Bourne-Hulsey, who is the director of Art Feeds. Art Feeds is one of those organizations that kind of grew up here, right here in Joplin, and had its start here, out of the imagination of one of those phenomenal women of Joplin who seem to run so many of these great not-for-profit corporations that exist here in the greater Joplin area. We've kind of been a little bit of a hotbed for great ideas that we've managed to, grow up and pass on to other parts of the Midwest, and I think that that's a terrific thing. So we're going to be talking about Art Feeds, what it's all about, what it does, and where it's at right now. So we thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute.
If there's a family history of breast cancer, especially breast cancer at an early age, that's a very high risk factor for breast cancer, and those patients should have early surveillance and should be aware of some of the signs and symptoms of early breast cancer. Other risk factors would include maintaining an optimal weight. If one carries excess weight, that increases baseline estrogen levels, and that seems to increase the risk of breast cancer. Those would be the main risk factors.
Welcome back. This morning our guest is Meg Bourne-Hulsey, who is the founder of Art Feeds, or one of the founders anyway, right here, that was created right here in the Joplin area. Who knew? So you did.
Yeah, I knew.
So, and I did too, but that's the reason why you're here. So Meg, tell us a little bit about yourself first, and how you came to be in the Joplin area, and then where did this idea for Art Feeds come from?
I was born and raised here. Joplin is my hometown. I went to Catholic school here locally.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. Went to Catholic school. Grew up and went on to public school. I kind of thought I wouldn't stay here, but then I sort of had this magical moment with a little boy in a classroom that prompted me to start Art Feeds, and I ended up staying.
Yeah. So what was that idea? What happened with that little boy that made you suddenly dream this thing up?
Yeah, so I was volunteering in a behavioral disorder classroom in 2009. I just love children and I wanted to be around them. So I just found a local school and decided to volunteer my time. And there was a little boy who was really struggling. He was extremely lethargic, had trouble concentrating. Academically, he was not measuring up to his peers, so I just took a special interest in him and started spending more one-on-one time with him. And the more time I spent with him, our relationship and trust grew, and he shared with me that he wasn't being fed at home. Now that was my first real, true interaction with neglect, severe neglect in my own community. I had seen it, internationally in some work that I had done, but I thought, this is right here where I live.
Right here in Joplin, right?
So with him not getting fed, we got that problem taken care of with snack pack and free lunch and some conversations with his mom. But for me, I thought, man, the problem runs so much deeper in you if you don't think you're worth your basic needs by the person who's supposed to love you most. So I just thought, what can I do for him? What kind of skills and talents do I have? And I had a point of reference of art and creativity, and what it did for me as a child. I was very shy, extremely introverted, struggled with...
It just amazes me. Go ahead, yeah, all right.
Struggled with severe social anxiety, but I had a great home life. My parents surrounded me with art and creativity and expression, so I thought, I'm going to try this with him. So I brought some watercolors from home, and to this day we've worked with thousands of children and no one is as talented as he was. And I just could see him creating and
You're not
going,
just a little prejudiced?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe a little bit.
Okay.
But I could see him creating and going like, I'm good at this.
Right.
This has worth and I have worth. And he was really growing in self-confidence. So on the expression side, it was like, this is extremely important. Mental and emotional wellness is important for children in education, but how are they getting it? And then on the academic side, he was still struggling. We would write and try and write his ABCs with a pen or a pencil. And I thought like, okay, like this is a roadblock we're hitting. Let's use paint. You're confident in paint. And where he failed to write his ABCs, he could paint his ABCs, which was proof that the knowledge was there. He just needed another avenue to express it or some sort of spark or encouragement to help him move in that direction. So he was the first moment, and then there were other instances in that classroom. There was a little boy who was on the autism spectrum and couldn't really calm down to concentrate. Tried a couple different things with him and found that music really helped him focus. And another little girl that art journaling was her mechanism, and she disclosed she was in an abusive situation at home. So I was 19 years old at the time, and I thought, like, this is undeniable. I can't stop doing this thing. But I was running out of art supplies. So I thought, like, how do I sustain this thing? I decided to call it Art Feeds because art was feeding that first little boy in a way that was just as essential as the food he was missing. Took his handwriting and he stamped his hand down, and it ended up in a heart, just like that. And I thought, like, okay, this is for you and by you. Took all that, took a $200 paycheck, printed up some shirts, started selling those shirts to get more money to do more art, and so it goes.
And so now you've expanded to lots of places, right?
Lots of places, yeah. A lot of people think that Art Feeds happened because of the tornado, but we're actually in existence prior to the tornado.
Right.
We just had a very big platform and a really high need following the disaster in Joplin. So we grew very rapidly and in a big way and worked with 15 schools and 3 children's organizations, over 5,000 children consistently in the Joplin community. Now we have served 9 communities domestically and are working internationally as well. So since 2009, we just did the math on the numbers, and that's 31,500 children. So,
yeah. And so people have been, that 31,500 children have been fed creatively and artistically, to find ways of expressing some of those things. So, like, what do you do when you go into a typical classroom? I mean, what do your folks do when they go into a spot to do that?
Yeah, so we're really all about empowering community members, and they're often young people, because I was so young when I started the organization. I really believe in young people investing themselves in their own community, so we train them.
You're still very young.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd say that. That's okay.
Great, I'll hang on to that
That's
for as long as I can. So we train them on what we call the Art Feeds method. That's making the kids feel safe, encouraging them, helping them feel free and safe to express themselves. So they go in, our curriculum is all forms of art: dancing, painting, drawing, community artwork, theater, storytelling, everything. So it kind of runs the gamut to help meet kids exactly where they are. And we partner, we aren't an art center per se. We say we're mobile. We meet kids in need wherever they're at, whether that's Children's Haven or Leffen Center or in school during the school day.
Yeah. So are you in most of the schools here in the Joplin area?
Yeah, all of the schools have access to Art Feeds programming, and every year we just visit with the principals and see what kind of track of curriculum they want to use. So like this, I was seeing all these Facebook posts go up, and I recognized a little girl that when I first met her, she was in kindergarten, and now she's going into 6th grade. So a majority of the Joplin elementary school population, we've been with them for their entire elementary career. So yeah, it's been pretty cool.
So you've got these different folks, so you hire folks that have got some, at least a desire to work in those mediums?
Yeah, so
those
it's
media.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. There's some people who come to me and say, like, I love kids, but I do not have an artistic bone in my body. And it's not about being artistic, it's about being creative. So we give them all the tools. We have a really amazing curriculum, and we teach them how to teach. So it's a little bit of everybody. It could be someone who's in education, or someone who's an art major, or someone who is in accounting but just really loves children and wants to invest in them. So it's really about people just with willing hands and hearts giving their time.
So is most of your staff volunteer, or are they hired? Or?
Yeah, so we have what we call like teams of educators. So each school has their own team, and there's one paid lead educator. So they, at each of the schools we serve, we have a lead, and then we have about 4 or 5 volunteers. So we try to keep a 4-to-1 ratio because 50% of the programming is therapeutic art. So students do talk a lot about stuff. So we try to keep that 4-to-1 ratio so someone is there really investing in them.
Yeah. So so they'll go in and they'll. I mean, so just what would be a typical day if Art Feeds was going to visit my children's classroom that day? What would happen?
Okay, so one of our lessons that I really love is a storytelling tent. So that's in 2 parts. In 1 week, we work with the students and we do finger weaving and finger crocheting. So at first they hate us when they're doing that because they say it's so hard. And in Art Feeds, we always say like hard does not equal bad. You have to try. You have to have grit and resilience. You know, you're creative. Try this thing. And then it's pretty cool because about 5 kids in the classroom figure out how to do it, and then they're teaching their peers how to do it. And there's a lot of strength and community and teamwork there. So then we take all of the pieces that they've created and take it back to the Art Feeds office, and we make a storytelling tent. So the magical storytelling tent is actually a hula hoop with all of those pieces. We work with every single student in the school typically, so that could be 300 or 500 pieces of string that all the students have collectively built together. The next week, it's a storytelling tent, so the students pick some sort of object. That could be a paintbrush or maybe like a lawn gnome or something random. They pick it and then they step under the storytelling tent and tell a story. So it's like this magical thing because the shyest student in the class has this layer of protection in the storytelling tent that these students have built together. So they'll tell big, long, powerful stories. We had one student who picked up a paintbrush and said, that this is my paintbrush ninja, but he was an orphan and he was in foster care, and he talked about this paintbrush going in and out of foster care and then finally finding his forever home. Well, that student had actually been adopted 2 weeks prior.
Foster care.
Telling his own story to the entire class. And so
that would have been a little more threatening if he was just saying, okay, this is my life.
Right.
But when he's starting to tell a story about a paintbrush that's been in and out of foster care, it's unlocking it in a completely different way, where he had access to it and they all had access to it, and we're able to grow from the story. It's kind of amazing.
So those are the type of moments that's why we do what we do. It's about that expression in mental and emotional wellness, community empowerment among students. And we're not just sitting down with them saying, hey, talk about your problems. Tell me about them. We're just creating an environment where we love on them. They are encouraged to take risks. We say there are no wrong answers here, which to the students who always have the right answers, they're like, wait a minute.
Like,
wait, don't I get an A?
Wait, what is that? No. I need to know what I need to do in order to get the highest grade.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, no, that's not it.
No, hold on. If there's no wrong answers, are there right answers? How many right answers are there? But then to the student who always gets the wrong answer, who never feels like they're right, they're going, hey, there's no wrong answers here? And we're like, just try whatever you want. So it's that whole issue. I mean, they say this a lot in art, and they used to say it to people like me because I was one of those people that sometimes wanted, well, I want to know what I'm supposed to do here. And, and it was just like, it's the process. It's not the product. It's the process that you go through. It's not what you're going to come up with when you're done. Because it's not going to be graded and it's not going to be judged or juried or any of those things. But it's like, we want you to just see what happens when you do this. And give yourself over to this process. That's pretty amazing. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about more about what some of those moments may have been as they've kind of unfolded before you. And I'll talk a little bit too about what some of your dreams and those kinds of things, maybe for what Art Feeds might do next. But in the meantime, we are going to take a break and come back in a moment. We've been here with Meg Bornhelsey from Art Feeds, and this is Faith in Our Hometown.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
Well, welcome back to Faith in Our Hometown. I'm here with Meg Bornhelsey, who's an old friend. We've known each other now for 10 years, okay? And so Meg, where did you know, in the first part of the show, you were talking a little bit about this process and this, magical storytelling tent, and it's the process rather than the product. And all these things, where you're coming up with these abilities to just open up for our younglings, ways to be expressive, ways to express themselves. Where did those ideas come from?
I don't know. I'm like such a child at heart. So with Art Feeds, we try to just really ask ourselves, what did we remember? What was powerful to us? And all of our lessons are not just like, Meg wanted to do this. It's a lot more than that. But the idea starts with us. Because we really love and understand and value children, and recognize what happened in our childhood and how it affected who we are now. And then we kind of spitball that, and then that goes to a certified teacher that's on staff with us, and then a child trauma specialist and art therapist also consults on the curriculum. So it's something where we might say, hey, remember this or remember that. Like after the disaster, whenever all of the debris was cleared, we felt kind of funny during that time because we couldn't see, I didn't know which plot of dirt was mine anymore.
Right, exactly.
I couldn't see the debris, I couldn't figure that out. And the students were feeling the same whenever we were talking to them. So we said, how do we help them get out of this funk? So we said, hey, we talked to the mayor and he wants you to redesign the city. So we gave them big sheets of paper and they redesigned the city. What do you want in it? Of course, a lot of them rebuilt CC's Pizza, but they rebuilt, Mercy Hospital and to their schools and their homes and their friends' homes. And then we thought, well, what was the funnest thing whenever we were kids? And it was playing with big, huge boxes and imagining that they're anything. So we decided to take that project a step further, and we found huge stove and refrigerator-sized boxes. Said, okay, remember that town you designed? Now we actually have to build it. So we got them into groups, and they built this town. So out of a situation that felt dire and helpless, we empowered them through their ideas and their creativity.
To rebuild.
Yeah, exactly.
And in the rebuilding was the hope.
Yeah.
We should have been playing with the big kids too.
I know.
We really should have been playing with the big kids too.
I know.
But I'm glad because I think that's in some ways, first of all, children are resilient, okay? But I think that when we allow them, sometimes, we give them the space to be creative and to rebuild and to do those things. And I think that's one of the genius pieces about what you all do is you just kind of let all you just kind of like start from where you guys are, as a board or as a group of professionals, and then all of a sudden you start doing that. And I love it because you're taking psychology, you're taking theology, you're taking all these little pieces that are parts of all of you, and you're just kind of throwing them into the process, and you're again letting the creative process take place. And then once you're onto something, you guys then shape it and mold it and form it and figure out how to pass it on to a group that needs it, which I think is great. Now you're gonna have to do Art Feeds for grown-ups.
Yeah. We actually did do Art Feeds grown-ups as fundraisers a couple of times, which those will come back up again, but that's where adults could register, and we did fun things with them too. And usually there were donuts involved. So.
Well, what? All right, so you've done this now. You've taken Art Feeds and what you created here in Joplin, and you guys have been able to take it, to so many other areas, and internationally now. You've got some groups going there. So what's next? What are you guys dreaming about next? What do you want to see happen?
I get that question so much, and I think for me, I'm a builder and I'm a creator, so I can't what is that thing about a shark when it stops swimming it dies or something? What is that? I don't know.
I gotta say I haven't done a lot on sharks lately, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so some sort of shark metaphor.
I think that's really about. I think it's probably pretty true for most. Fish, if they're not in certain movement all the time, they're not doing that would be it.
Right.
That's almost for all creatures.
Yeah.
So I gotcha.
So
if you're not moving,
I have
going.
to keep, if I get stuck in kind of the same routine, I can't do it. So for me, I want to never stop dreaming and reaching. So we started this thing in Joplin, and then when it was awesome to go from one classroom to another classroom, that felt amazing. But then that classroom grew into other schools, and then other schools grew into other communities grew into international. And so for me, I just want to keep creating and make this thing as accessible to as many children as possible. So one of our really great projects that I love, another track of our curriculum, is mural making with students. So that puts the creation process totally in their hands. And we have 16 murals in Joplin currently. Those are inside schools. But in other communities, we're putting them in downtown. And we're hoping to do that in Joplin in this next year. And that is so cool because the kids, we say, your idea is valuable, and it's valuable enough to put on a building, and a permanent building downtown. And so I'd love to see that grow into communities across America. I am excited in the next year for our international programming. We've done, you mentioned some powerhouse women locally.
Yeah, there's lots of you.
Lots of them.
Lots of you.
So we're proud to have partnered with Touch a Life and Rafa House, both founded locally. So yeah, I just hope to keep moving on that stuff.
Just trying to keep going.
Yeah.
So how would somebody? So what do you need? What do you need from like some of our viewers? What you know? So, I mean, a not-for-profit depends upon the the gifts of other people. So I want to make sure we put up our little graphic here so everybody can see how to give to Art Feeds. Okay. And so say a little bit about what you might want and what people might be able to contribute if they give to Art Feeds.
Yeah, so if you have time to give, we want it. We want you to be an educator. That's volunteering in the classroom with the kids. And you can go to artfeeds.org or artfeedsjoplin.org. And of course, we are looking for volunteers on the weekend. If you don't have time to give but you have money, our formula is very simple. It's $1 per lesson per child. So if you give us $20, that's 20 lessons. You can also give that at artfeeds.org. And then we have a really wonderful campaign coming up in September. I mentioned that shirt, kind of where it all started, how we started to get money. We're having Art Feeds Day, September 8th. So everyone, we're encouraging them to buy their own shirt, customize it, and wear it together on September 8th.
Okay. Well, I think it's really important because we've got all of these groups doing so many good things, and one of the things that I've just always discovered, and first of all, I really think that the Joplin community is extremely generous. When they get an idea and they get behind it, they support it. It's good. But the deal is that everybody has different interests and everybody has different things that excite them.
Yeah.
I would have never been able to do what you did, in terms of doing that. But when you get me involved in the creative process with a bunch of other people, I can make my contribution. I can do my thing. And I think that's one of the things that we really try to model here at Faith in Our Hometown is how can everybody find one little piece that they can do to help, or if they like this particular vision or they like this particular, so they do think back about I was one of those people that at the age of 39, for the first time since I was a kid, somebody put watercolors in my hand and said, we're just going to do this. I was on a retreat with a bunch of campus ministers from all over Missouri. And we were all in this retreat together, and they let us a little bit of reflection. We started doing the watercolors, and I said, all of a sudden, I am watercoloring, and, the Sister Carita comes by and not the Sister Carita that was here in Joplin, but there's another Sister Carita who's a Mercy sister, another Mercy sister named that in St. Louis, and she's an artist, and so she was leading us through this process. She goes, you've got a creative propensity with watercolors. How long has it been since you've done this? And I said, I can't even remember. I mean, I was a little kid, and I'd never done anything with it. And so I really do think that, whenever we get that opportunity to do some of those things, when people will open up the space for us to be creative, some amazing things happen.
Yeah. I firmly believe that everyone is creative, that you're born that way. It's just fear. That sort of fear of am I going to be good? Is someone going to judge me? Kind of squashes that.
I'm a professional person. I mean, I got to be good at everything I do.
Yeah. You want to be good at it. I mean, and just doing does so much good for your insides. So that's why we do what we do. And we think that children, and they're the most wildly creative of all of us, and we want them to keep that. So
we can keep those fires stoked.
Yes.
We're gonna be in good shape. So what's your favorite memory of all the stuff that you've done with Art Feeds? And maybe you already told it to us, but I'm just saying, what's some of your favorite memories about what you've accomplished over the course of the last how many years? 6 years now?
We're in our seventh year.
Yeah. Okay.
Favorite. It's like choosing between your children, right?
I got it. Yes.
I can't. But I haven't really talked much about our international work, which is very small at this point in comparison to the domestic work. But one really powerful moment I had is I was working with a child in Ghana, in West Africa, and those children were trafficked, bought and sold into labor on a lake in Ghana. And this particular group, they had been rescued and were in recovery, and one little boy, they had told me he dove so deep into the lake that his eardrum burst, and so he was deaf. So I had this connection to him and spent a lot of time with him, and I was listening to earbuds, and he kept saying, and I was like, you're not going to be able to hear this, and so I put earbuds in. We're kind of working with this lesson, and I thought he couldn't hear anything, and then he put his hand on me and started patting the beat.
The beat?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, so he could at least feel it, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And maybe even hear it a little.
I think he could. Now he's adopted. He's in the States.
There you go.
He can hear now. But that was that moment for me that was like, whoa.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Meg, I just want to thank you for coming and being with us this morning and sharing how your dream kind of blossomed and continues to blossom. It's always exciting to hear how the creative process works for people and how that creative process worked in such a group setting and continues to enliven the creative process in our younglings. I just think it's exciting as we see that whole process continue to go. So we'll be right back after this Mercy Minute. Thank you for joining us for Faith in Our Hometown.
I thought about bariatric surgery because the struggles I've had with my weight all my life. Every time I tried a new fad diet or a new diet, it seemed to always put back more weight on than I lost. And then of course that leads to a very downward cycle of being very hard on yourself, being very depressed. It's been amazing. I mean, it's been shocking. I feel like a whole new person, inside and out. It's just not with the surgery, but also with the care team and everything involved. The dietitian, the therapy, and everything has been. I feel reborn. I'm able to do things that I want to do. I'm not held back by my weight. I'm not held back by my depression. I'm not held back by emotional weight and physical weight I was carrying around. I feel free. I feel like I can do anything.
Well, thanks for joining us this morning for Faith in Our Hometown. Our guest this morning was Meg Born-Halsey, who is one of the creators and founders of Art Feeds. One of the entertaining things about my 10 years now in Joplin, now 10 plus, is that I have been amazed at the number of ideas that just kind of grew up and blossomed here in the Joplin area. We've got some creative powerhouses, and so especially, I'm going to give the women more credit a little bit, because you guys allow yourselves some of that sometimes. But we've had some creative powerhouses for some of the women here in our community, and Art Feeds is one of those creative powerhouses that continues to just grow. See what happens when you give yourself over to creativity. See what happens when you give yourself over to the ability to just think outside the box and see what can happen from whatever you do. I know that happens in terms of faith. I know it happens in terms of life. I know it happens in terms of the organizations and things that we create and use here in our community. So again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday with Faith in Our Hometown. Hope you join us again next week. God bless.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.